Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning into the Liberty Report. With us today is Daniel McAdams, our co host. Daniel, welcome to the program once again.
Good morning, Dr. Paul, and all our viewers. I'm next door.
Right, we had to improvise a little bit here, but we're here and we're going to have our program as usual. But there's a lot of activity going on. There's a threat to our livelihood and our efforts to get our message out because as soon as somebody comes along that we use, like YouTube, seemed to give us some service for a while, and that didn't work out all that well. And people are fussing with them. But then we discovered that there was a new company coming on, and they're very successful. We've been very happy with Rumble. But guess what? Somebody is so scared of themselves and are fearful of hearing the truth, and they do whatever they can to stop it. So there's an attack on Rumble right now, and it's coming out of this attack on Russell Brand, and they have to control it. But where it's really getting serious, before there was a combination of big government corporations banding together to try to control, free speech. Well, they're continuing to do that, but this one's a little bit different because it is an argument that the corporations and the efforts going on there are giving the instructions to Rumble and threatening with the force of law and closing down. So it is a big problem. How it's going to pan out, we don't know. But tell you one thing, if we don't get our act together, that is the people who believe in the First Amendment, and there are a lot of people speaking out now, this hope that will build, because that's the only thing, public opinion is the only thing that can resist this onslaught and this destruction of the benefits that are available to us through the internet. So the people who are in charge of that, they don't have much of an interest or an understanding, nor do they care about freedom of expression. They care about power and getting their message out and promoting what they believe is the best road for their wealthy control of world government. So, Daniel, I see this as a serious move on the way what this is working out.
Yeah, it is very dangerous. This stems from what we were talking about just a few days ago, which is the UK government passed this online safety bill, and they are using that to try to silence Russell Brand because some 20 years ago, he's accused of inappropriate sexual behavior. Now, he hasn't been charged with any crime, much less he hasn't been convicted of any crime. Nevertheless, there's a woman who is the Minister of Culture in the United Kingdom. And as we discussed the other day, she started sending letters to YouTube, to TikTok, to all of the social media Russell Brand is active, saying, I hope you're going to demonetize him. I hope you're going to deprive him of a way to make a living. Of course, even though he hasn't been convicted of anything, this woman from the British government is bullying these companies into disappearing him. Well, they went to Rumble and they said the same thing to Rumble. We want you to take this guy down. We want you to shut him up. We want you to take his money. And to their credit, and that's why we're broadcasting on Rumble right now, Chris Pavlovsky, the CEO of Rumble, said, go pound sand. I'm not going to do that. I'm not about to do that. And we cheered him last week, Dr. Paul, when he said that. But now we're seeing, thanks to our friend Glenn Greenwald, who always has his eyes on things, the British government is not going to lay down and roll over and let themselves be told no by some lowly corporation. They're actually going to strike back, and they're threatening Rumble in the UK, which, as you say, that will threaten our audience and everyone else who broadcasts on Rumble because we have a lot of viewers in the UK. So, Dr. Paul, it's a very dangerous thing. It's shocking to see the British government behave this way.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's the message that we have to get out. But, they're proposing a new law. And believe me, they're not being bashful about what they want to do. The new law says internet firms must prevent children from seeing pornography. They're very serious. They must be right-wingers, as well as any material promoting eating disorders, self-harm, and suicide. We want to control their lives completely. That's my ad lib afterwards. But you say, well, this is not too bad. A lot of people, including myself, I think that pornography that subject should be true. I believe it should be policed. by the parents. That sort of thing. Not an authoritarian group that's become international and their goal is to really control the internet. There's a fight between technology being used for beneficial purposes, technology being used to control people and expand the globalist messages that are going on right now. I used to kid, but I believe this in a way that yes, I really believe in some control on pornography, and that to me is political pornography because when you think of it, there's a lot of things immoral that goes on in a totally free society is not absence of immorality. The big question is, how do you want to control that? And of course, one thing that we did very early on in history is to separate the church and state, and the morality would vary, and the responsibilities were different. But when it comes to issues, when you think of the danger of some of the things that they control, and control the danger of a philosophy, an authoritarian philosophy, interventionism, fascism, communism. When you compare those, that's really harmful, and it's devastating, and it's usually instituted by the government power. Just look at what's happening in our country right now. It's the government that's instituting so much power and this total takeover of our judicial system. So we're in big trouble because I think we should look more at the pornography of government political ideas and not pretend that we can make a better world by turning the control and the censorship to a bunch of people who want to make more money and gain more power.
Yeah, well, here's the article that spells it out, Dr. Paul. It's in The Sun, and if we can pull up that first clip, this is a British newspaper, The Sun, and it says, set to tumble, and it's, I'm an online expert. Russell Brand's refuge platform Rumble may be forced offline under new internet safety laws. And go to the next one, because this is exactly what you were just saying, Dr. Paul. They've passed this online safety bill in the UK, and there may be a lot of people that agree with this. It says they want to prevent children from seeing pornography, as you say, and also harming and suicide videos and this and that. There's probably nothing wrong with having that. I think the companies could probably police themselves. Nevertheless, as always happens, Dr. Paul, they put in a law that most people agree with, saying, hey, the kids shouldn't be watching pornography on these channels, but then they use it to silence someone like Russell Brand. Now, his show is not pornography. His show is him criticizing big pharma. It's criticizing lockdowns. It's criticizing governmental hypocrisy. They want to put him out of business, not because he's running a porno shop, but because he's exposing, as you say, the political pornography of the governments. And they have the strength to shut him down and to shut Rumble down in the UK. And in fact, if we can go to that next one, Glenn Greenwald spells it out in a tweet exactly what this means. The stakes are even higher than pulling the plug on Rumble in the UK. Now, Rumble was threatened in France, and Rumble said, okay, then we won't broadcast. We're not going to go in for censorship. But it could actually be worse in the UK. And here's what Glenn Greenwald wrote. The British press is now invoking the new and repressive online safety bill, not only to argue that Rumble can and should be barred entirely from the UK, but tabloids are also insinuating its executives could be subject to arrest when entering the UK. And here's from that Sun article, Dr. Paul. It says, so when they get a letter from Ofcom saying, here are all the things you're going to have to do, it seems to me the most likely reaction is going to be, they're going to say, well, we won't operate in the UK anymore. And here's the highlighted part. Failing to cooperate with Ofcom, which is their regulator of TV and media, could put Rumble executives at risk of arrest if visiting Britain, it has been suggested. Dame Caroline Dinenage, who chairs the Commons Culture, Media, and Sports Select Committee, wrote to Rumble last Thursday asking whether they would be suspending Brand's ability to earn money. The comic and film star has 1.4 million viewers on Rumble. So, Dr. Paul, again, we're seeing this crazed woman in the UK trying to shut him down, but not only trying to shut him down, they want to arrest the heads of these companies, the heads of Rumble, if they dare go to the UK. It's insane.
It does raise a very important question that we talk about all the time, and that is why are they doing this? And I would say that there is a reason that they do this. They are very fearful of hearing the truth. Just recently, there is again in the media this idea that, well, we have to deport this very, very dangerous family because they're homeschooling their kids and, of course, getting a much better education. We got to deport them. What do they fear about homeschool? What do they fear about a guy like Brand? What do they fear about it? And to me, it's the challenge. It's the challenge from they cannot stand the openness of the truth. And that's what the internet has provided. And that's what it can provide. And that is why they are determined, because it's a challenge to the deep state, the big state, internationalism, authoritarianism, all the works, the financial system, because it's a link to the people directly, and it's magnificent. And yet they recognize this, but you just think of the systemic effort, and yet it evolves into something of really causing great disruption in our country. Look at the chaos in our street. And they're not worried about this. Matter of fact, they enjoy it. Well, that's one of their goals, because they think they can eliminate the enemy, the enemy of hearing the truth, by chaos, and say, see, they don't know what they're doing. They just show pornography and all these other things because they lie through their teeth, because they don't even believe in a higher law that you should live within the mind. They believe it's up to them to provide this effort for us. And I think that we are in bad shape, and it's being played out right now, and people can see what's happening. I just hope we can help people to understand what really is going on. And to me, it's a big fight between big government and living in a free society where truth is important.
Well, hopefully the citizens of the UK will stand up and shut these people down, because it is awful. And meanwhile, again, as we said before, we're certainly happy to be associated with Rumble, and we're proud of them and stand behind them for saying, take a hike. We're not gonna censor people just because you tell us to. That's setting the best example. But let's move on, Dr. Paul. We've got a shorter show today because we're in a little bit difficult of a situation. But we do want to talk about another thing that we don't know the answer to. However, we both found very interesting and very curious. Let me just kick it off by asking to put on that next clip. And we noticed this in Zero Hedge. But this is something else, Dr. Paul. I don't know what your views are on this, but it says, Fauci was smuggled into CIA headquarters to influence COVID-19 origins investigation, says the select subcommittee on the coronavirus pandemic. What on earth do you think was going on, Dr. Paul? Why are they sneaking Fauci into the CIA?
Well, I think I talked a little bit about that a minute ago, because they don't want to hear the truth. They have to smuggle them in. If they had deliberate ideas of how to improve things, like abolishing the CIA and the FBI, no, they're not going to let that out. People would ask too many questions. So they have to do it this way. They have to smuggle and sneak and conspire, take over the internet, on, and then bribe people into doing it. The corporations are in bed with the government in way too many places. When you look at the military industrial complex, and you look at the pharmaceutical industrial complex, the educational industrial complex, it's a combination. So it is these same people that promote all that, which is a form of interventionism and corporatism and fascism. They're the ones who scream the loudest that if you're for truth, they say, you're the fascist, you're the fascist. So every time you hear a complaint thrown at the people who are trying to give us the truth, they're the ones who are really promoting all these lies. Think about it in a political terms. Some of these political races, one group blames the other group, for cheating and stealing and being part of the Russian hoax and all this. Well, they're the ones who probably, the more they yell. I think this is true. I find that true. When the people argue the loudest about bigotry and segregation, all this stuff, they're probably the most and most involved in participating in these ideas of racial injustices and the chaos. They're looking for chaos so they can come in and fill the void, and the filling the void is what they're trying to do now, right now, when you hear these stories. But I'm still convinced that the large majority of the American people, if they only get the facts that of what's really going on, they're on our side of this issue. And I think that is what they fear the most. They cannot stand up to it. That's why they have to silence people. And this is what is going on. They see somebody getting some information out, and they have a large audience because that to them is their arch enemy, and they have to stop this truth telling because it interferes with their goals of globalism.
Yeah, and the whole CIA being involved with Fauci raises a lot of big questions because we were told trust the science and that Fauci is the science, but here we find out that the Central Intelligence Agency is inviting Fauci secretly into the CIA because somehow they want to influence the discussion of the origins of the virus. And if we can put on this next one, this is what the subcommittee investigation sent a letter now to the ombudsman. And go to the next one. Here's what they say. They are looking to find out what role did the CIA play in manipulating or influencing any kinds of conclusion about the origin of the virus. Was it a lab leak? Was it something else? And I think, Dr. Paul, our big question is, if this is just about science, why is the CIA involved, and why are they bringing Fauci in for discussions?
Well, the CIA obviously is a very important participant in this group that would like to undo everything that has helped make America at one time a republic, and they feel some positive approach right now because the republic is dwindling away. And it's only the principles of a republic where the people, aren't driven by dictatorial majorities who can band together of all those who think they're going to get something from government, and to have the majority of people, dictate to the minority. People complain about the minority being stuck with all these problems we have, but that is deliberate because that is the way they get people to go along with this. And unfortunately, too many people go along with it. We have talked about the good parts that come through, and the good things did happen during the lockdown. People did wake up, and I think they better wake up soon on all of this. And I think this year coming up is going to be a big year for the debate of these issues. And I fear the fact that some of this stuff could get rather violent because, if they start throwing people in jail because we don't want them on the ballot or destroying their lives and destroying their family life, if that happens, I think the anger is going to escalate. And, our pleading for a peaceful transition and an ability to present our ideas will be stamped out. But that's the whole thing. They know that we have the superior position and knowledge about truth and getting along with people and how freedom works, and they cannot stand the idea. They get hysterical over the whole thing. They go nuts over the whole thing. So they want to put the people who want to tell the truth in prison.
Yeah, that seems to be the case, Dr. Paul. Well, I'm going to close out if you think we're ready to have a little bit shorter of a show today, but we're going to keep our eye on things. I think we might have a different format tomorrow as well, but we hope our viewers will still join us to go over a couple of things that we noticed in the news. And I want to thank everyone, of course, for watching the program. Over to you, Dr. Paul.
Very good. And I want to thank our viewers and listeners very much for tuning in and giving the support that we need. And in spite of my emphasis on trying to describe the dangers that we live in, I always found that over the years, if you tell people of the dangers, and it sounds like a very negative message, it's just like in medicine. If you tell people, a patient, the truth that you have a problem and you better deal with it, and there is an answer, we can help you. they see that as optimism, even though most of the effort is describing the danger that you're in. And I find that true to be true in politics as well. People know this, and they want to hear it, and they want it explained. But the message is there's an answer to it. The answer has been provided to us, and in bits and pieces over many centuries. Certainly, it was provided to us to try to understand it with our Constitution. Unfortunately, in the last 100 years, it's been a drift away from that. And that to me is sad, but there's no reason not to encourage people to know that the ideas of truth is available to all of us. And that is what we have to do, continue to do, because as you always have heard me say, if it's a good idea, an idea, even with the internet, cannot be stopped. Yes, they're going to give us all this grief we talked about, but a good idea cannot be stopped. Sometimes it's painful and it takes a while, but a good idea cannot be stopped even by armies. But the most important thing is that we who believe in the free market and personal liberty, we have to continue our efforts to present that as the case for a solution to the many problems we face today. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today to the Liberty Report. Please come back soon.